This incredible story occurred in the spring of 2004 in a quiet New Jersey suburb. A traditional family of four had just completed the paperwork to purchase their dream home when the patriarch vanished without a trace. However, the reality that emerged was considerably more horrific. Melanie Lind was born on October 8, 1972, in Ridgewood. She was an excellent, vibrant girl who never caused trouble and was always willing to help others. Melanie attended Rutgers University after graduating from high school, where she majored in math and psychology. She then graduated from nursing school. Melanie got a job at one of the country's best reproductive medicine clinics, where she was praised for her dedication and understanding. Her patients cherished her. To save money, she worked as a waitress while living at her parents' house. Bill Maguire worked as a waiter in the same business. Bill, who had previously married and served in the Navy, was recognized for his wit, intelligence, kindness, and exceptional friendship skills. He was always ready with a joke and a way to brighten the moods of those around him. Melanie and Bill began a casual romance, brought together by their similar wit, that quickly developed into profound fondness. Bill fell in love with Melanie for the first time, and they married in 1999. They soon welcomed their first son. Bill found work as a programmer at a computer institute in New Jersey, earning a nice living. The couple chose to reside in Woodbridge, a small town with a population of about 100,000. They rented a townhouse and appeared to be satisfied with their lives and raising their son. However, beneath the surface, they struggled to cope with Bill's infidelity. Bill's gambling habit frequently resulted in arguments. He would travel to Atlantic City and spend nights in the casino. He occasionally came back with large gains, but more often he suffered significant losses. His desire for instant fortune never materialized, and his disappointments were eventually directed at his wife. Bill's mood began to change in unanticipated ways. He occasionally became upset and vented his frustration on Melanie. After receiving a speeding penalty, he reacted in anger, calling his wife to yell at her. When she hung up, he called again, criticizing and even threatening her with physical damage for having the audacity to hang up on him. Melanie discovered she was pregnant with their second son, around 3 years into their marriage. She was working at the infertility clinic when Dr. Bradley Miller joined the team. Brad had a family with small children. Melanie sought solace elsewhere, as her and Bill's relationship deteriorated, marked by quarrels, suspicions of adultery, financial difficulties, gambling problems, and neglect. She began a romance with the new doctor in the final stages of her pregnancy at 38 weeks. Miller was far friendlier than her spouse. Despite her efforts to resist, given Bill's disregard for their union, she eventually caved. Melanie kept her relationship with Brad as Bill explored his own interests. Nonetheless, they continued their marriage, ignoring one another's actions. The arrival of their second kid did not alleviate their family problems. They also managed to accumulate a large sum of money. To keep Bill from draining their savings through gambling, they decided to invest in their own property. However, deciding on a place proved difficult. Bill wanted to go to his hometown of Virginia Beach, whilst Melanie preferred to buy a home in New Jersey and invest their money in real estate. To dissuade Bill from gambling, she believed it was a sensible investment and stated to her husband that she was unwilling to relocate far away from her job at the clinic, which she valued, as well as her relationship with Dr. Miller. Consequently, Melanie persuaded Bill that purchasing a home in Woodbridge, New Jersey was the best option for their family. The search for the ultimate home began. They eventually discovered a property with a large yard, ideal for their children to play and enjoy themselves. Melanie was overjoyed, and Bill seemed really thrilled as well. The sale of their new home was scheduled to close on April 28, 2004. Melanie was 31. Bill was 39, and they had two sons, ages 3 and 5. Unfortunately, they never lived in this luxury property. After signing the contract and closing the deal, Bill told his pals about his excitement at owning a home. Melanie contacted her paramour that evening, following Bill's wine-induced slumber on the sofa, and announced her decision to file for divorce. However, before she could discuss the matter fully with Bill, a heated argument broke out the next day. Melanie stated that Bill brought up the home purchase matter again, regretting that he would have liked a more cheap property in Virginia instead. Influenced by his wife, they had invested all of their savings in a $500,000 property. The confrontation became physically aggressive. Bill then announced his departure, saying he would not return and warning her not to tell their children they were fatherless. Melanie assumed he had traveled to Atlantic City to gamble. Days passed with no contact from Bill. Melanie eventually admitted that he had permanently abandoned her and their children. She made no effort to find him or exhibit concern about his whereabouts. As a de facto single mother, she handled her children's daycare arrangements and arranged for their grandparents to watch them overnight. She then sought a divorce attorney and obtained a temporary restraining order against Bill as a result of their previous altercation. On May 5, 2004, just a week after Bill's departure from his family, two fishers and their children in Virginia Beach discovered a suitcase adrift in the water. They believed that it could be someone's misplaced items that fell from a bridge. They dragged the heavy case onto their vessel, showing that it was wrapped in black rubbish bags. The parents became skeptical until a toddler pulled open a package, revealing a gruesome sight: human legs severed below the knees. The findings stunned everyone on the boat. One of the anglers immediately called emergency services. The area surrounding the terrible discovery was crowded with boats and vacationers. A fishing island, a residential sanctuary, and a tourist attraction are all nearby, a popular destination for leisure and family activities. Finding a bag full of human remains was the furthest thing from anyone's expectations. When the police arrived and conducted a preliminary inspection, it was clear that this case would not stand alone. As expected, it didn't. On May 11, 2004, a student from Fishing Island discovered another luggage on the beach. When she opened it, she was greeted with an overwhelming smell of rotting. As she emptied the waste bags, she saw a body and head wrapped in a clinical blanket. Then, on May 16th, an unwary angler discovered a third suitcase containing the remaining body. The remains were promptly sent for forensic analysis. The coroner discovered 6 bullet wounds on the thorax, including one fatal shot to the head. The water had made it difficult to identify the victim's characteristics. However, a forensic artist was able to recreate the face and sent a rough sketch to the press. On May 21st, a close friend of Bill stumbled onto a news piece featuring a sketch of an unidentified person. The presented face struck him as strangely familiar, and he realized it was his friend Maguire within moments. He contacted Bill's sister, who verified that no one had spoken with her brother and that he had vanished following a disagreement with Melanie. The acquaintance wasted no time in notifying Virginia Beach officials of his concern. With a name to work with, the police soon identified a match with fingerprints on file. Maguire had been arrested for dangerous driving before, and his fingerprints were in the system. Undoubtedly, the remains enclosed in 3 distinct suitcases were identified as William Maguire's. The next stage was to figure out how his body got there. Initially, the investigators invited Melanie to the local precinct. After getting the news, she was overcome with sadness and tears, and her attitude was one of deep sorrow. However, on her next visit to the Virginia Beach police station, she was joined by her divorce counsel and a criminal defense lawyer. This action struck the police as unusual. A bereaved spouse, backed by 2 attorneys, was hardly an everyday occurrence. Melanie showed apparent symptoms of nervousness during their conversation, especially when the suitcases containing the remains were brought up. She initially denied owning such bags, but the next day she phoned officials and said they did own a comparable set. Melanie described Bill as rude and capable of provoking trouble, exposing his severe gambling addiction. She suggested that he had a habit of borrowing money and failing to repay it on time, which had disastrous effects. Following the incident, authorities conducted a comprehensive examination of the couple's townhouse to gather additional evidence and potentially rule Melanie out as a suspect. The inside was beautifully clean. By this point, widow Maguire had moved out with her children, and the late husband's belongings had been distributed to friends. Interestingly, Bill's items were packed in large black trash bags similar to those found inside the suitcases. Melanie's nursing career also led to the discovery of a blanket similar to the one covering Bill's head. Bill's car was discovered in the parking lot of the Flamingo Hotel in Atlantic City, where Melanie had placed it as retaliation for his infidelity. "Sure, I'll pick up where the tale left off," allegedly moved it as a hoax. Melanie rushed through the cremation and funeral arrangements once his bones were released for burial, surprising visitors. Observers observed the service's shortness, lasting about 10 to 15 minutes and characterized by a perceptible sense of detachment and coldness. Melanie excused her conduct by arguing that her new reality as a single parent required her to go forward with her life. Bill's remains were discovered in Virginia, far from his residence in New Jersey, which perplexed law enforcement officials. Nonetheless, detectives were convinced of Melanie's role in his unfortunate death. The investigation into Bill Maguire's death was elevated to high priority. Given the gunshot wounds, the authorities investigated Melanie's recent procurement of a firearm, revealing that she had purchased a pistol in a neighboring state just 2 days before Bill went missing. Melanie first denied the presence of any firearms in their home. However, during a further interrogation, she admitted to purchasing the weapon on Bill's behalf, citing his concerns about failing a background check owing to previous traffic violations. He allegedly required the gun for self-defense. The case became increasingly suspect with each fresh piece of evidence. Melanie's phone communications were intercepted by law police in the hopes that she would confess her guilt unintentionally. This intense surveillance yielded more than 500 hours of recorded discussions. The police discovered Melanie's extramarital affair with Dr. Miller on these tapes, which surfaced as a potential motive for murder. The investigation then focused on Dr. Miller's suspected participation in Maguire's death. The technicalities of how a small-statured nurse could dismember a body and spread it over 3 luggage prompted concerns. When police contacted Miller about their concerns, he, a married man with young children, denied any participation. To prove his innocence, he agreed to wear a wire during an encounter with Melanie, which ultimately cleared him of any suspicion in the case. Nonetheless, a new lead emerged. Melanie traveled to Delaware on May 4th, according to toll records which the police discovered. This voyage was notable since it led her across a bridge over the Chesapeake Bay. On May 5th, fishers and children discovered the original suitcase containing Bill's body parts. Melanie stated that her trip to Delaware was inspired by the reduced furniture pricing available there. However, pausing on the bridge to throw 3 luggage through an open window seemed strange, especially in an area often packed with traffic. While the majority of evidence pointed to Melanie, it remained indirect. The district attorney's office sought more information to determine the exact location and time of the murder, as well as how Bill ended up in the Chesapeake Bay. An initial assessment of their home yielded no clear results, prompting the decision to conduct numerous more extensive inspections to uncover any forgotten evidence. A second, more thorough inspection was undertaken. They conducted numerous chemical analyses and even extracted portions of piping for additional inspection, but no direct evidence of a crime was discovered within those walls. A thorough inspection of Bill's car revealed evidence that may potentially blow the case wide open. Inside, authorities discovered 2 syringes and a container of chloral hydrate, a potent sedative commonly used in medical settings. This drug was tracked back to Dr. Bradley Miller's clinic. Interestingly, traces of the same chemical were found in Bill's car service records, but the discoveries did not end there. After studying minute residues found in Maguires' automobile, detectives identified minuscule shreds of human tissue, dubbed human sawdust by the press, unmistakably linked to Bill, as well as a bullet shard entangled with small pieces of dark green cloth. A couch of the same hue had previously been a fixture in the Maguire home. When asked about the source of the sedative, Dr. Miller denied any participation, implying that Melanie may have falsified his signature to obtain the medication. This led the investigators to a chilling hypothesis. Melanie had meticulously planned her husband's death. She laced Bill's drink with the sedative, knocking him out. Then, using a couch cushion as an improvised silencer, she shot him. After that, she moved his remains to another site. The next morning, she dropped her children off at a daycare center and arranged for their pickup by her parents. With the children out of the way, she allegedly dismembered Bill's body into 3 chunks with a power saw, placed them in suitcases, and methodically removed any blood traces from the area, making it appear as if nothing had happened. The sofa, now an inconvenient piece of evidence, was discarded with other household objects during the relocation. Melanie then drove to Virginia Beach, a 7-hour trip one way. During this moment, she was observed on a toll road. She then tossed the baggage down a bridge near Chesapeake Bay before returning. She then drove Bill's car to Atlantic City, where she abandoned it in the parking lot of the Flamingo Hotel and took a cab back, paying the fare with cash. Melanie's error was that despite her careful efforts to clean up the murder scene, she ignored the shoes she was wearing while dismembering her husband's body. She transferred minute human remains particles to the car's floor mat, which stuck to her shoes while driving to Atlantic City in his vehicle. Melanie was captured on June 2nd, 2005, and charged with murder. She was released on a $750,000 bail pending trial. Her children were removed and placed in the custody of Bill's sister, who allowed Melanie to see them under supervision. Melanie faced further claims after being released on bond on October 11, 2005, which resulted in her bail being increased to $2 million. However, she was liberated once again. Melanie put together a well-known defense team while she was free. Her defense argued that the seemingly incriminating coincidences were explicable and that there was no direct proof linking her to the crime. Nonetheless, the prosecution made a solid case by introducing fresh, incriminating evidence obtained from the family's home computer. Forensic investigation of the hard drive revealed search phrases such as methods to illegally acquire weapons, untraceable poisons, and ways to commit murder. The prosecution said Melanie made these searches, implying long-term planning for the crime. Melanie's legal team, however, noted that the computer was accessible to the entire family, making it difficult to determine who conducted these searches. The plastic bags discovered with human remains and the garment bags Melanie relinquished were made by the same company. The discovery of animal fur on the bags, despite the fact that the family did not have any pets, added to the mystery. Melanie Maguire's trial began on March 5, 2007, over 3 years after she committed the murder. The prosecution claimed her motivation was to start over with her paramour, Bradley Miller. Melanie was taken aback by his testimony during the trial, which exposed his affair in a public setting and forced him to testify against Melanie in order to protect his personal life. Finally, the jury began its deliberations. The prosecution was concerned about whether they had adequately demonstrated Melanie Maguire's guilt to the jurors. They wondered if the jurors would believe that a petite, seemingly harmless nurse could commit such a horrific act. Melanie Maguire was sentenced to life in prison in July 2007 at the age of 34. She will be eligible for parole after serving 66 years. Her future would now be restricted within the confines of a prison cell. Her defense team was perplexed by her conviction, despite strong, reasonable doubt, and promised to continue pushing for her. Melanie filed multiple appeals, all of which were refused. Currently, she is adjusting to a life devoid of freedom, away from raising her children and missing out on her peak years. This marks the end of the story. Like the video and share your ideas in the comments.